It's about what?
I'm sad for those who don't feel that they are loved in order to work in this life.
Was the beloved Mr. Rogers truly the gentle soul we all admired, or was there more to his story? For generations, Fred Rogers made children feel seen, heard, and safe. But behind his soft-spoken voice and kind demeanor, there was a more personal side that the cameras never captured. Before his death, Rogers' widow revealed a deeply personal truth, one that wasn't shocking, but profoundly human. What she shared might just change how you remember America's favorite neighbor forever. Imagine the most powerful children's show in television history not relying on flashy graphics or loud characters, but on the strength of one man speaking directly to your soul. That was the quiet revolution Fred Rogers started with a little show that made an enormous difference, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Fred Rogers never set out to be a TV star. More than anything, he wanted to connect with children, right in the heart of their big emotions, small questions, and growing spirits. When Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood first aired on PBS in 1968, it stood out with its calm, almost meditative pace. There were no bright lights or wacky characters. Instead, Fred would enter his television home, hang up his coat, slip into his iconic cardigan, change into sneakers, and sing, "Won't you be my neighbor?" It felt less like a show and more like a comforting visit with a trusted friend. Fred built the show as an emotional classroom. While other programs taught the ABCs and 123s, he helped children understand their feelings: fear, sadness, anger, joy, giving them the tools to process the world around them. The show never shied away from tough topics like divorce, death, race, or disability. It approached them gently, without ever talking down to its young audience. Episodes also explored the whimsical neighborhood of make-believe, where puppets like King Friday 13, Daniel Tiger, and Lady Elaine Fairchild acted out real-life dilemmas. Many of these puppets were voiced by Fred himself, each one a reflection of his inner world. Over 31 seasons, from 1968 to 2001, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aired an astounding 895 episodes. Its staying power wasn't about spectacle, it was about heart. Fred understood that children didn't need more noise. They needed stillness, honesty, and someone who treated their feelings with real respect. Every episode was a little sanctuary, no laugh tracks, no ads, no chaos, just Fred, speaking directly to the camera, and to the soul of every child watching. For kids growing up in difficult homes or feeling alone, those 30 minutes became the safest part of their day. While the show was quiet in tone, its guest list occasionally made a splash. Fred welcomed artists, musicians, scientists, even animals, who came to teach or simply share space. Guests like Yo-Yo Ma demonstrated how music could express feelings that words couldn't. Julia Child brought her culinary joy, while LeVar Burton connected through a love of reading. Illusionist David Copperfield added magic, and Tony Bennett shared his voice and warmth. In one unforgettable moment, Coco the gorilla used sign language to communicate with Fred, creating a powerful display of connection. But whether they were celebrities or everyday heroes, everyone was treated with the same respect Fred gave to his audience. That was his magic. He made everyone feel like they mattered. The impact of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood didn't go unnoticed. The show earned 4 Daytime Emmy Awards, 55 Emmy nominations, and the prestigious Cine Golden Eagle Award for its outstanding educational programming. In 1997, Fred received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys. In his acceptance speech, he moved the audience by asking them to take 10 seconds of silence to reflect on the people who helped them become who they are. The entire room fell still, a moment of collective gratitude led by a man who had always put others first. But for Fred, it was never about the accolades. His true reward was knowing that children felt loved and understood. Even after the show ended in 2001, his legacy continued. Thanks to streaming and YouTube, new generations still discover his calm voice and comforting wisdom. And Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, produced by Fred Rogers Productions, carries on his mission, offering modern stories built on the same timeless foundation of emotional honesty and kindness. Fred Rogers once said, "The greatest gift you ever give is your honest self." For over 3 decades, that's exactly what he gave. And in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, that honest self never goes out of style. To truly understand Fred Rogers, you have to meet the woman who stood beside him through it all, Joanne Rogers. Their story, rich with love, creativity, and resilience, is far more surprising and inspiring than most people realize. Before she became known to the world as Mrs. Fred Rogers, Joanne Bird was already building a life of purpose and passion. Born in 1928 in Jacksonville, Florida, she was raised in a home that valued curiosity, music, and meaningful conversation. Her father was a traveling salesman, and her mother, a dedicated homemaker, brought love and structure into their household. Joanne learned early how to speak up when it mattered, and how to listen deeply. Music wasn't just a talent for her, it was her language. By grade school, she was already a piano prodigy, not because she sought attention, but because playing made her feel alive. From classical to jazz to folk, she explored music fearlessly. When she attended Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida, her path became clear. Majoring in music performance, she stood out for both technical precision and the emotional depth of her playing. Professors noticed, classmates felt it. Joanne had a gift for connecting through music in a way that transcended words. But she never sought the spotlight. What she truly cherished were people, real conversations, and genuine connection. Her warmth and wit lit up rooms, and her curiosity made everyone feel heard. After college, Joanne continued her musical journey at Florida State University, and later Carnegie Tech in Pittsburgh, now Carnegie Mellon, where she honed her craft and embraced her independence. She also taught music at Chatham College's preparatory school in the 1950s and at Carlow College in the 1970s, sharing her knowledge and passion with young students. As a concert pianist, she performed with her close friend Janine Morrison in a celebrated duo, recording 2 albums, Duo Piano Favorites and a Virtuoso Duo Piano Showcase. Joanne was never content to be someone's sidekick. Her life was filled with music, independence, and authenticity. She was later recognized with an honorary degree from Duquesne University in 2019, a fitting tribute to her lifelong dedication to music and education. So, when her path crossed with someone who shared her quiet depth and creativity, it wasn't mere coincidence, it was destiny. The love story between Fred and Joanne Rogers began quietly at Rollins College in the late 1940s. Both were music majors, both passionate about their art, and both about to become essential to each other's lives. Joanne wasn't easily impressed. She had seen the difference between charm and substance. What drew her to Fred wasn't flash. It was the way he truly listened and treated everyone with rare kindness. Their bond deepened in piano labs, practice rooms, and during shared performances. There were no grand gestures, no sweeping romance novels playing out. Instead, they built something stronger, a partnership based on rhythm, intellect, and emotional safety. They spoke the same musical language and, more importantly, they truly heard each other. After graduation, Fred moved to New York to begin working at NBC, while Joanne remained in Florida. In the era before smartphones and video calls, their long-distance relationship survived on handwritten letters, each one brimming with love, trust, and growing devotion. Then came the letter, Fred's proposal. Hidden within his usual updates and tender words was the question that would shape their lives. Joanne was so overwhelmed with joy she ran to a phone booth to say yes immediately, nearly losing the letter in the process. She kept it safe forever, knowing it marked the beginning of something unshakable. They married in 1952 and embarked on a journey that would span more than 50 years. But theirs wasn't the kind of picture-perfect marriage that just sits pretty in a photo frame. It was vibrant, imperfect, funny, and real, a love story rooted in mutual respect, shared purpose, and a deep understanding of each other's souls. Music remained a central thread in Fred and Joanne Rogers' life together. The two often played piano duets, not aiming for perfection, but delighting in the harmony, and even in the occasional wrong note. They had their own inside jokes, their own rhythms of communication, and a bond built not on showmanship, but on mutual understanding. When Fred's world became overwhelming, when the spotlight of fame felt too bright or the noise outside grew too loud, Joanne was his quiet place. Together, they raised 2 sons, James and John, in a home that was structured yet warm. Joanne wasn't just Fred Rogers' wife or the mother of his children, she was the emotional anchor of their family. She protected Fred's space, respected his need for routine and silence, and supported his process while also challenging him when necessary. She understood his depths, his complexity, his anxieties, and his insecurities, in ways few ever could. Most importantly, she never tried to change him. She loved him as he was. Many people saw Fred Rogers as simple, kind and gentle, yes, but also uncomplicated. But Joanne knew better. She saw the layers he carried, the weight of others' emotions, the pressure he felt to do and be enough. She was the one who held all of that without fear. She gave him room to be both tender and flawed. Even as Fred became a beloved national figure, their marriage stayed grounded in the everyday. They didn't chase applause or public approval. They cherished the simple things, mornings filled with music, shared laughter over life's small moments, and the rare kind of companionship that can only grow between 2 people who know each other completely. What made their love story so powerful was that it wasn't a fantasy, it was real. Behind the public icon was a man supported by a woman who understood the difference between fame and intimacy. Joanne saw the man the world never fully did, his doubts, his discipline, his private worries, and she kept those pieces sacred. That, perhaps, is the real magic of their story, not that it was perfect, but that it was chosen, day after day, across more than 5 decades. When we think of Fred Rogers, most of us immediately picture the soft-spoken man in a cardigan, singing, "Won't you be my neighbor?" and looking into the camera with gentle reassurance. His slow, steady voice became a source of comfort for millions. To many, he wasn't just a television host, he was the voice of childhood comfort, a calming presence during confusing times. And for the most part, what we saw on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was the real Fred. He genuinely lived the values he taught: kindness, empathy, and emotional honesty. His friends, coworkers, and loved ones often affirmed that he was just as gentle off camera as he was on screen. But what makes Fred's legacy even more profound is the fact that he wasn't perfect. Joanne Rogers once said that while her husband truly was as kind as everyone believed, he was no saint. He struggled with doubt, with stress, with the emotional weight of his role. The kindness he expressed wasn't effortless, it was intentional. Fred chose it, every day. There was a quiet discipline behind everything he did. He stuck to daily routines, like swimming each morning and keeping his weight at exactly 143 pounds, a number he cherished because it stood for "I love you." 1 letter for letters, 3 letters. These rituals weren't just habits, they were small, sacred reminders of his commitment to love and presence. Still, being the moral compass for millions of children came with pressure. Fred never complained about it, but Joanne saw how much it weighed on him. She saw the fatigue, the self-doubt, and the emotional labor it took to carry such a responsibility. Their marriage, like any long partnership, had its challenges. Joanne often had to take the lead in parenting, especially when discipline was needed. Fred found that part more difficult. His deep sensitivity made him incredibly empathetic, but also vulnerable to emotional exhaustion. His work wasn't just a job, it was a mission. And while that mission brought beauty into the world, it also meant Joanne often became the grounding force when Fred bore the emotional burdens of others. What's remarkable about Fred Rogers isn't that he never stumbled, it's that he faced those challenges with humility, that he leaned on others, and that he kept showing up with love. Joanne helped reveal that side of him, not to tarnish his legacy, but to humanize it. Fred wasn't a myth. He was a man who felt deeply, cared deeply, and made the daily choice to live by kindness, even when it was hard. That honesty makes his goodness all the more meaningful. And yet, behind all that gentle calm was an awful truth, Joanne eventually revealed, something that added complexity to the way we understand Fred. It wasn't meant to diminish who he was, but to show that even the kindest among us carry struggles and imperfections. Because sometimes, seeing our heroes as real is what makes their goodness most inspiring. The awful truth. when you hear the phrase, awful truth. You might expect scandal or shocking revelations, but what Joanne Rogers shared about her husband, Fred Rogers, was something far more delicate, more human. It wasn't a secret meant to shatter his legacy, but a truth wrapped in vulnerability, love, and quiet strength. Fred Rogers, long admired for his calm demeanor and boundless kindness, faced struggles in his final days that the world never saw. Joanne, as his life partner, witnessed a side of Fred most never would, his battle with stomach cancer, which became not only a physical challenge but an emotional and spiritual journey for them both. This wasn't a tale of disgrace or failure, it was the story of a beloved figure grappling with mortality. Fred's illness began quietly, just a bit of discomfort, some indigestion. He tried to manage it himself, cautious and patient as always. But eventually, the pain grew too strong to ignore. Tests revealed a grim diagnosis. The cancer had spread, and the prognosis was bleak. As the days of treatment stretched on, so did the emotional toll. Fred, ever the quiet optimist, remained involved with the world around him. He even served as Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade in Pasadena in January 2003, just weeks before his passing, a testament to how deeply he cared for others even while in pain. After undergoing surgery, Fred returned home. There, in the comfort of familiar surroundings, he found small peace in simple things, like playing the piano, even as his body grew weaker. He passed away on February 27, 2003, just one day after his grandson's birthday, surrounded by the people he loved most. Joanne held these intimate details close for years, not out of shame, but out of reverence for Fred's privacy and the persona he had so lovingly built. Eventually, however, she came to see that sharing this side of him made his story richer and more truthful. She spoke of how their relationship changed during his illness, how she became the caregiver, bearing the weight of watching her husband's light dim while holding space for his pain. It was a sacred responsibility, full of both love and sorrow. She recounted the emotional complexity of their final days, his humor that endured even in darkness, and the quiet joy that stayed with him until the end. In one particularly moving moment, she recalled telling him, "We're going to be okay. The boys will be fine. And I'm going to try to be fine." In that moment, she felt Fred left this world peacefully, perhaps even joyfully. In documentaries like Won't You Be My Neighbor?, Joanne began to open the door to these lesser-known moments, offering a fuller, more human picture of Fred. Her reasons were never for spectacle. They came from love and a desire to honor his story completely. She also spoke openly about the emotional aftermath of his passing. "Wouldn't it be nice," she once said, "if we could just tell ourselves, okay, your time to grieve is up. But it's not like that for me. Some days I feel energized. Some days I feel depleted. Grieving can be exhausting." Joanne's reflections encourage us to see Fred not as a flawless icon, but as a deeply human man who carried burdens alongside his hope. His strength wasn't in pretending he had no fear or pain, it was in choosing love, patience, and presence despite them. That's what makes this truth not awful in the tragic sense, but powerful in its honesty. Fred Rogers was, above all, real. And after his passing, Joanne didn't close the book on their story. Instead, she turned the page, and what came next was just as impactful as the life they had shared. When Fred Rogers passed away in 2003, many assumed his wife, Joanne Rogers, would quietly grieve and retreat from the public eye. But instead, she chose to step forward and carry on the mission they had shared for over 50 years, a mission rooted in kindness, emotional understanding, and human connection. Joanne became a steady and passionate force behind Fred's legacy. As chair emerita of Fred Rogers Productions, the company Fred had created to bring his heartfelt vision to television, she ensured that his values didn't fade with him. Even as media evolved rapidly, Joanne protected the soul of Fred's work, keeping shows thoughtful, tender, and meaningful for new generations of families. Joanne wasn't content to work behind the scenes. She became a public ambassador for Fred's philosophy, appearing in interviews, documentaries, and events to share stories about the man she knew best. She reminded audiences why kindness wasn't just an idea, it was a daily choice, and a vital one. In the 2019 film A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Joanne even made a small cameo, adding a personal and touching layer to the story. Her presence gave viewers a glimpse of the real-life woman who had stood beside Fred through every chapter of his life. But Joanne's contributions weren't limited to preserving Fred's message. A gifted concert pianist, she had her own deep connection to music. Her performances, like Fred's words, resonated with audiences on an emotional level. She released recordings, played with passion, and proved that love and art are not separate things. They're two sides of the same coin. Friends and fans alike often remarked on her humor, insight, and calm strength, all of which made her the perfect partner in continuing Fred's legacy. Fred's philosophy lived on, not just in shows or speeches, but in something as simple and profound as a number, 143. It was Fred's personal code for I love you. 1 letter in I, 4 in love, and 3 in you. He even kept his weight at exactly 143 pounds for much of his adult life as a quiet, daily reminder to live lovingly and intentionally. In 2019, the state of Pennsylvania honored him with 143 Day. On May 23rd, the 143rd day of the year, a day dedicated to performing acts of kindness in the spirit of being a good neighbor. Joanne Rogers passed away on January 14, 2021, at the age of 92, in their Pittsburgh home, surrounded by her loved ones. She left behind not just 2 sons, but a legacy every bit as meaningful as Fred's, one built on compassion, purpose, and quiet strength. Together, Fred and Joanne weren't flashy. They didn't need to be. They believed that love was not about grand declarations, but about consistency, intention, and presence. For them, saying, I love you, didn't always require words. Sometimes 3 little numbers were enough. And so, as Joanne broke her silence and shared the private truths behind Fred's public persona, it only deepened the story of America's most beloved neighbor. Perhaps the most powerful message she left us is that real love, like Fred's, isn't about perfection. It's about choosing kindness every single day.